Welcome to Map Dowsing 2020. Map Dowsing changes every single year because everything changes every single year. And with the present COVID problem, boy, is it changing this year. So we're going to start in on map dowsing right away. Map dowsing is not perceptually different than any other dowsing. It's just a matter of how your head uses the information that you're taking in from your environment. So whether you are information dowsing, map dowsing, using remote viewing or whatever, it's all out there in the vibes. And that brings me to my definition of the dowsing, how dowsing works, which is, and since you've been to this conference for a few days now, you've heard lots and lots of definitions. And I recommend you put all of those definitions together into one and make it yours, because pieces of different definitions will reverberate with you, and that will be nice in your heart. So, we're going to start back at Newton. He sat under an apple tree, and an apple hit him on the head. And he was a very good mathematician, and he said to himself, like the little red hen, "Why did the apple hit me on the head? How come it didn't go up or left or right or any other direction? Why did it have to come down?" And he was a good enough mathematician to figure out gravity. Now, that's Newtonian physics. We're going to zip forward from Newtonian physics to E equals mc squared, Albert Einstein. Albert Einstein says mass and energy are interconvertible. And in that equation is frequency. And everything on the periodic chart is frequency, has its own frequency. So you have a frequency selector right here between your ears, and all you need to do is learn to focus on whatever frequency it is that you experience a frequency, and then you learn to focus on it, and then it's already stored in your memory banks. You can go back there anytime at all. So in essence, we all live in a primordial soup of frequencies. It's all out there in the frequencies. It's just there, like the periodic chart. So you were probably feeling all those frequencies when you were in the womb. Now you're out here and you can experience them first thing. ASD, American Society of Dowsers, usually teaches water first for several reasons. One, there's enough of it that it's relatively easy to find. And number two, it's the second most important thing that you need in your lifetime. You have to have air, that's number one. And you have to have water, that's number two. All the rest is fluff and stuff. So, if it's all out there in the vibes, then where you are doesn't matter, because it's all out there in the universe. It's all in the vibes. When you were in the crib, your mind was called tabula rasa, which roughly translated is without information. That doesn't mean that your eyes and your nose and your ears weren't working. It means there was nothing inside your head to hook it to so you understood what was going on in your environment. So if you walk down the hall toward the room where the crib was and the baby starts crying, it's not necessarily that the baby can see you or anything else or hear you. It feels your energy. It feels your aura coming down the hall in front of you. And of course, then if it wants attention, then it's going to cry, get your attention, and see if it can't get a snack. Okay. Now we're going to spend some time ad infinitum trying to find Rover the Lost Dog. Rover was kindly manufactured and duplicated by my granddaughter, and she says it is a German Shepherd. Good. So to find something, somebody's going to send you a map or fax it to you or email it to you or mail it to you, slow mail, whatever, any old way that you can get it. And it is supposed to represent the area where the lost item is. So your very first question before you go any further is, does this map represent the area where Rover the lost dog is now? And if you get a yes, then you know to proceed with this map, because while it was coming on the fax machine or whatever, Rover could have walked off the edge of the map and gone to the next door neighbors or the next village if Rover's mobile like that. So we are going to show you some methods. They're just techniques. Every different person may have a different technique, and what you can do is look at all these techniques and take pieces of them, just like the definition for dowsing, and see if you can make a technique for yourself. And if you get into a situation where it's brand new to you or something very different is happening, you may need to invent a way in which to do it right there on the spot. And of course, this is the magic of the human mind. You can do that. So, here's Rover the lost dog. You can't see Rover because we're going to imagine that you can't see Rover, and we're going to go looking for him. So, if you have a partner dowser, you can have the partner put the ruler at one edge of the map. You become trained on finding Rover the lost dog. And when you're ready, you ask the helper to slowly take the ruler up across the map. And when you feel, or you see on your pendulum or whatever, that the ruler is where Rover is, you ask them to stop. And they can draw a line in right there, right then. Then you have your partner take the ruler across the opposite direction, and when you feel, or you get your dowsing response, that when you feel you've gotten it, you ask them to stop, and they draw in the line. There's Rover. That's really pretty quick and easy. Not the quickest and easiest method you're going to see in the next little while, but it's a good one. And it is the basis for almost all of the other methods. Okay. No cheating. I'm going to take the lines off so you have to see it again. We're going to do it now with the hardest one of all. We're going to do it with a Y rod. I use a Y rod in the field, and there's several reasons for that. Number one is that this one happens to be spring steel, and it's piano wire is what it is, with a plastic cover. If you hold the Y rod, it takes both hands. You don't have a hand left for anything. And if you think and suppose that you can use the tip of this Y rod in order to go along the edge and find Rover, the thing is moving at the time you need to know where the mark is supposed to go. So, one of my teachers, happened to be from New York State, said, you hang a pencil down from your hand. Then you set yourself up in your dowsing position, and we're going to make this rod come up in order for you to be able to see it on the camera. Now you go along the edge and you ask where, and you're looking at where the pen or the pencil is, not at the tip of the Y rod. You start along an edge and you go along and you're asking, where's Rover the lost dog on the scanner method, and when your Y rod pops, you mark it. Now you go over here, you go down another side, and when your Y rod pops, you mark it. Then all you have to do is, just like before, draw Rover in. Now you can fax the map back to the people. It's their job to find it from there, and believe me, it can still be a job, and a job that isn't so very easy. Some people are not accustomed to noticing what's going on in their environment, and if they're not, then even though you've given them a general idea, they may not find Rover. In fact, I had a telephone call 2 days ago from New England, and a fellow's dog who is blind walked off, and he'd been gone for a day. And I did my method, the new method of finding where the lost dog was. Rather than have them send a map or fax a map or any of that electronic stuff, if the people who are trying to hire you to find this know where north is at their house, then you can put yourself in their shoes and set up with your preferred rod and start pointing in a direction that you know, in this case happens to be north, and you move the tool around until you get your positive response. In this case, it was southwest. So I called the man on the phone and said, your lost dog is southwest of your house. And it's pretty much true southwest. It's not wandering around in between. And then I ask, how far away from the house is this dog? 100 yards, 2, 3, 4, 500 yards it popped. I got on the phone and I told him, you go that direction, not to exceed 500 yards. He called back one day later. They had started out at the house and gone 100, 150 yards, and the dog was down in a ravine. And it was huddled down there. Of course, it was scared because it can't see and it doesn't know what's going on. So in less than 15 hours, he had his dog back. Some of these techniques can go pretty fast. Ah, yes, the engineer's method. Yes. Okay. There's Rover the lost dog, and you're not supposed to know where it is yet. So you take the map and you mark it into 4 pieces. Perhaps. Yeah, that's a good one. Okay. Now, you can information dowse where Rover the lost dog is, and that way you don't have to call it map dowsing. You can call it information dowsing. So this becomes box A, B, C, and D. Then, of course, you information dowse and ask, is Rover the lost dog in box A? Yes. Is Rover the lost dog in box B? No. Is Rover in C? No. And is Rover in D? No. So you go back and you knock box A into 4. So you have A1, A2, A3, and A4. Seems clumsy, but now you ask. Information dowse? You don't have to map dowse, you can information dowse. Is Rover the lost dog in A number 1? No. Is it number 2? No. Is it number 3? No. Is it in number 4? Yes. So what do? You knock box A4 into 4 pieces, and that becomes A1A, A4B, A4C, A4D, and you dowse. Is Rover the lost dog in A4A? No. 4B? No. 4C? No. 4D? Yes. So what do? You go back and knock that one into 4 pieces, and you knock that one into 4 pieces, and this one into 4 pieces until you hit Rover on the nose. Now, the one thing to remember about Rover is his name is Rover, and he may very well be roving, in which case this is where Rover is right now. And if you can't take the family station wagon and go out and look for him there, Rover could be in the next county by the time you get there. So don't let any dowsers ever tell you you can't dowse when to go pick up Rover. You can dowse into the future and you can dowse in the past, whether other people think that you can or not? What is it that you think you can or cannot do? And if you believe the people who put a limit on you, then you have their limits, and you are no longer unlimited, which is what dowsing is about. Okay, gotcha, Rover. There we go. Yep. Next fun method. Oh, the next fun method is kinesiology. I like this one. I don't use it very often, but I like it. Here's Rover the lost dog. And we're going to use the sticky, slippery method. This is called a whiteboard, and it is slippery. And if it were a photograph, it would also feel slippery. So, you don't know where Rover is. You take your pointer finger on your predominant hand, and you start at a corner, and you start making little teeny circles. Circles, circles, circles. It feels slippery, 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 slippery. And sooner or later, you're going to feel a tacky spot, as though there's a piece of paper there. It's not slippery. What you need to do is mark that spot. Then you start any other side. Slippery, 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 slippery. Oh, there's a tacky spot. Mark it. And then all you have to do is draw them together. There's Rover by the kinesiological method. At least that's the method that I call it. I don't think you're going to find that written anyplace else, but that's what's in the book. Easy Elrod method. Okay. We sort of covered this a little, but we're going to do it because it's very, very easy. It's very, very quick, and quick and easy is a good way to go. All right, there's Rover the lost dog. Take your Elrod. You can just take one. You don't have to have two. Two is a habit. It's fun in the field to have two. They go clink and so forth. But take your Elrod and start at any corner of the map. Put the Elrod parallel to the edge of the map and ask, where is Rover from here? Which direction? And then you just let your Elrod wander around until it comes to a stop. And when it comes to a stop, you could just put it down and draw it in. So we're just going to draw it in and use the Elrod as a ruler. Now some people hold the Elrod upside down on purpose so that they don't have to turn it over in order to get it. So they start at another edge and corner and they ask, where is Rover from here? And when it slows down and stops, they can just draw right along the Elrod. It's pretty slick. It's a good way to go. Okay. All right. Now, Elrod is also very good for this next one. And this next one is Rover is going to go roving. And we have a house, anybody's house, anywhere in the world, and we have a well. And the people who own this house call you up and say, we ran out of water, what's going on? And you can information dowse and ask, did the well run out of water? No. Is there a break in the pipe or something like that between the well and the house? Yes. So they need to find the pipe. Really, the best thing for them to do to start with is walk down in the basement, if they have one, and look and see where the pipe comes into the house, because that's where the pipe is going to land, whatever it does in the meantime. What you don't know, and I give you this information, is when they built the house, there's a great big rock here, and it's a big one, and they didn't want to have to jackhammer the rock or blow it up with dynamite, so they put the pipe up and over the rock and off to the house. The fastest way to find that thing is take your Elrod and put it on top of the well and ask, which direction does the pipe go from here? It might go this way, it might go that way. So it goes this way, you draw the line in for a little, and you ask, information dowse, how far along this line does this pipe go? And it goes all the way up to right near the end until you get your yes on your Elrod. Now, you put your Elrod on top of that spot and you ask, how does the pipe get to the house from here? And it says that way. So you start drawing the line that way. And you ask, how far along this line does this pipe go before it changes direction? It doesn't say anything, so it just keeps going. You can finish drawing it in. You just put the pipe in the house. Now they can find out what's going on with the pipe. I guess it rusted through. Yep. In construction, there's all kinds of situations that occur, and even if sometimes it's illegal, some builders will do something or other, and if what the information that you get doesn't make sense, then you need to remember they may not have followed the directions on when they built the house. The house that my wife and I bought, you're not supposed to put the electrical service and the septic in the same trench. When I dowsed the house, the electrical service and the septic pipe were in the same trench. It's illegal, but they did it. But if you believed the law instead of what your Elrod said, you would think that there was something crazy going on here. Bob Adder style. Like I said, for every kind of dowsing situation, there's somebody who can map douse it, and they may use very different techniques. Okay? Bob Ader was one of my teachers, and here is Rover the Lost Dog. Bob had what he called pencil dowsing. Bob, in his mind's eye, felt that there was a big cone of dirt coming up off of Rover the Lost Dog. And it was like a volcano. It was wide at the bottom and it was narrow at the top. So he took his pencil and he just went wandering along until he felt he bumped into the dirt. And he went some other direction until he felt he bumped into the dirt. And he's still down close to the map, and he's going along, and he bumps into the dirt. At least that's the way it feels to him. And he's coming down this way, and he bumps into the dirt. Now you can see, and I can see, that all you'd have to do is draw the four together, and you'd have Rover. That's not what Bob Adder did. Bob Adder went to one of the spots and went up higher off the map. And then he went in toward the center, because the cone is smaller up higher. And when he bumped the dirt, he dropped the pen, and when he came over here, he went up and he went in and he marked it, and he went over to the spot, up, in, marked it, and of course the same thing here. Again, all you have to do is draw all 8 dots together and you got it. So, but that's not what Bob did. Bob Ader took his pen knowing that in his mind's eye he felt this cone of dirt coming up off of here, and he brought it pencil up high off the map, and he would bring it along and feel around, and if he bumped into the dirt again, he knew he wasn't in the hole in the center of the volcano of energy. So he would bring it up higher, and he would go along, and then he would lower it just a little bit, and if he didn't bump into the dirt, he knew he was in the right place, and he dropped his pen. And there's where Rover is. Pencil dowsing by Bob Ader. It's different than some of the other methods, but it works. And if it works, do it. Now this is for anything in your life. It doesn't have to be map dowsing. If it works, do it. And if it doesn't work, don't keep doing it. Do something else. Okay? If you've got a sore elbow, there's several things you can do. You can put analgesic on it. You can go see a doctor. You can go see an acupuncturist or whatever. So how are you going to choose which one to do in order to get the answer more quickly and stop having tennis elbow? So you set yourself up in your search position and you say, is the best, fastest method is to go see a medical doctor? No. Is the best and fastest method to go to an acupuncturist? Yes. Okay, pick up the telephone and call an acupuncturist. it'll be a lot easier than going the hard way. Okay. Remote viewing method. Oh, this is easy. Well, perceptually it's easy, sort of. If you can come to the place where you know in your heart of hearts that it doesn't make any difference whether which kind of tool you're holding or which kind of paper it is or anything like that. You don't have to have a willow stick to find water. In other words, if you believe in your heart of hearts, you have to have a willow stick to find water in the field. You will have to have it because that's what you believe. So do not allow other people's limitations in on you. Okay? We don't know where this target is, but if you feel the energy of the target, you can douse as to whether or not this piece of map represents where the lost dog is. And the next thing to do is go into your alpha state and ask, is this where the lost dog is, somewhere on this map? Yes. Then you choose a symbol, such as maybe you'd like to see a star. I don't know. You'd like to see whatever it is that you'd like to see. It's okay. And some people want to see a circle, and I don't know what it doesn't matter. An X. Oh, yes, that's a good one. Okay. Close your eyes, become entrained on Rover the Lost Dog. And if you're expecting to see a star when you open your eyes, that is exactly what you will see. There's the star of Rover. And you found it. How long did that take? It took way longer for me to explain it than it did to do it. It's so easy. Okay? You're free again, Rover. Nobody's watching out for you now. Okay. My story for you about it doesn't matter where you are and what you're doing and what's going on around you, as long as you can screen it out, you're in good shape. My wife and I have been to Japan 12 times to find time capsules buried by grade school kids. Sometimes some schools wrote down where they put it and measured it and put it in the filing cabinet, but most of them didn't. And 35 years later, you know, the principal is probably rotated to some other school if he's even alive, and some of the members of the class aren't there anymore either. But for those who do show up to try to find the time capsule, a bunch of them will say, well, 4 or 5 of them think it's here, and 10 or 12 of them think it's here. Usually the higher number is correct. Even if they've changed the terrain, they come in and they backfill and they put up pretty trees and obelisks, and it really is beautiful. Then, of course, they have covered up the time capsule. So one time we were supposed to go over and find a time capsule, and we flew out of Philadelphia. This time, because of a problem with the airplane, they flew us down to Atlanta, and they had another plane there that was capable of flying to Japan, because the one we were on was full of water. It was running down the walls of the airplane. And of course the captain was not very pleased. He's going to be in the air for 14 hours. This is no fun. And they took us to Atlanta, put us on another big 777, and took us up over Alaska and the Bering Strait and on down to Japan. Well, all of this took a whole lot of time, and the press was there at the school, the backhoe was there at the school, everything there was there at the school, and we weren't. So we got off the airplane at the Narita airport in Japan, and they stuck us on the Shinkansen train, which goes 150 miles an hour. And here we are. We turned 2 sets of seats around so they face each other. They put a box there, and they put the school map there. And at 150 miles an hour, I am map dowsing where this time capsule is. So they were able to send the finished map electronically down to the school. And there was the time capsule. By the time we got there, in fact, it was only a few minutes until they got it out of the ground. And all of this is to explain this new electronic stuff can go very, very fast. And I'll tell you one more. I got a request to find a couple of water wells for a village. They were already had some people in the village, but the village was going to be expanded. They needed more water. So these entrepreneurial types sent electronic maps to us, and I dowsed the maps. And one of the pictures of grass and a few other things had a dandelion in the middle of the picture. Now, what they had done to get the picture is they brought a stepladder out and they set it around the property, and they took pictures with a digital camera down off the grass, and they sent us the pictures. And the one picture dowsed, this was one of the really good places. So I marked the spot, and we sent it back electronically, and they sent back a blow-up of the area that I had taken their map and said, because it was a big map, I need a blow-up of that much of the map. So they took the stepladder out and they took another picture. And right in the middle of that picture was that dandelion. And it was one of the old ones that's that tall instead of that short. And as soon as we found that dandelion for sure, we quick called them on the telephone and said, don't mow the grass. Don't mow the grass, because that dandelion knows where that well's going to be. And they quick marked it much better with an iron stake and all that kind of stuff. They hadn't mowed the grass, thank heavens. And they drilled the well. I told them they were going to get in excess of 55 gallons a minute, and at 300 or 400 feet. And at 300 or 400 feet, they got 55 gallons a minute. And the woman in charge of the resources for the country was there, and they called her there because 55 gallons a minute is the largest well they had ever drilled anywhere in the country. And she was thrilled to see it. She was absolutely beside herself. Enjoyed every minute of it. And of course, Diane and I enjoyed every minute of it in absentia too. It's all going to work out. Okay? GPS. GPS can be a wonder. Can be an absolute wonder. And the way this one came down, we got a telephone call from Texas. This builder had bought 500 or 600 acres to build in, and had been told by some of the people in the neighborhood that there were probably Native American graves there. And he wanted to know because he knew that it's a federal offense to dig up Native Americans. So he sent us the map and gave us the coordinates of where the whole property was. My wife took her computer machine and put the program in that has latitudes and longitudes on it. Then we marked where the lot or lots were on this map, and I dowsed where are these Native American graves. So you're going along the top of the map thinking of where these graves are, and when you get a positive response, you mark it. And you come the other direction, when you get a positive response, you mark it. You just found Native American graves. So Diane took the numbers of the latitudes and longitudes off of the edge of the map and called them to the man on the cell phone. Now he's sitting in his realty office and he has two telephones. He has Diane on one receiver and he has the man in the field on the other receiver. And he transfers these numbers, latitudes and longitudes, to the man who's out in the field with a portable GPS. And he walks around until he gets the right numbers in the GPS, and he drives stakes all along, and they never dig that corner of the property at all, and they never did come up with a Native American gravesite anyplace else on the property, and they dug it in. All right. It's surprising sometimes to find out what people know about their property or think they know about their property. They've been living on it for years, and they really do know a lot of the property and how it feels. So we got a telephone call one time from a well driller. And the well driller knew that that particular area, the geology in that area, is very hard, very tight. It doesn't hold very much water. So although he was a dowser, he asked me to come and set a place for the well. So down here in the ravine is the house, and up here on the hill is where the owners wanted a well to be. So I dowsed the whole property as to where generally there would be a good place for a well, up there on the top of the hill. Okay, so we all walked up there, and I dowsed out this spot, and the old man who owned the farm said, "Yeah, that's just about where you ought to drill to get water." And we looked at him and got a little bit funny, and they set the drill up, and they drilled down here, and at 200 or 300 feet, they had plenty of water. And he said, "Why did you drill 200 or 300 feet?" He said, "I thought that water was pretty shallow." There was shallow water there, but it was runoff water. It's only there after it rains. So if you mark that spot and they drill a well, they're not going to have water for very long, because as soon as it quits raining, there's no water in that spot. Okay? All right. Yeah. We did remote viewing. I want to cover another electronic piece of it. We have a friend here in the United States who was taught by the military to remote view, and he's one of the best remote viewers in the world. And although he's been retired 10 years, if the United States gets in trouble politically, they pick him up with a limousine and they take him into the office. There's still a desk sitting there with his name on it. Okay? Now, if you've been told you cannot understand, find, experience the past or the present or the future, you can do the present. This story goes, there was a globe on the man's desk of the earth, and the young man assistant comes in, and the dowser remote viewer is staring at this globe. And the assistant knows that if they're staring at something, just sit down and take it easy and find out what's going on when they stop staring. So he sits down, and after the remote viewer gets done staring at the globe, the young man says, "What can I do?" And the dowser says, "Go get a yardstick." He did. He comes back and he says, "What do I do?" And the man says, "You take the yardstick up over the globe and around and down and underneath and every old which direction that you can. And when I say stop, you stop with that yardstick and you calculate that angle of entry into the Earth's atmosphere." So the young man knows his physics, and he marks it on the protractor or whatever, and he goes and calculates it. When he comes back with a calculation, the dowser is looking at a map of the outback, Australia. And he's putting an X marks the spot in the outback of Australia. So when the X is planted, he asks the dowser, "What's all this about?" And the dowser says, 2 years from now, 2 years, 3 months, 10 hours, and 15 seconds, Skylab is going to break orbit, and it's going to come in on your yardstick, and it's going to land on my X in the outback of Australia. They had the day, date, and time perfect. They had the angle to the Earth exactly right, and they were 2 miles off on where the X marks the spot was placed in the outback of Australia. 2 years before it broke orbit. If you believe you can do this with some experience, you can. Just go right ahead and do it. It's not tattooed on anybody's forehead here that you cannot map dowse or remote view or anything else. I don't see it on any of your foreheads, and this isn't live anymore. This is electronic. Okay. Now, we're going to go to one more thing, and that is you can find pipes and wires. You can find holes in pipes like we did, or find out where the pipe went around the rock before it goes to the house. Then all you have to do is go back over the lines and find out and ask, where is there a hole in this pipe? Why are they not getting water in the house? All right? It's all out there in the vibes. We've said this a dozen times. It's all out there in the vibes. Do it, because you can do it. Yeah. My grandfather did a whole lot of wells up around Watertown, New York. And he didn't just do water wells, I found out, and only recently. One of his neighbors called him and said, "Would you come over and check our water supply?" And they had a dairy farm, and he went in and he had them draw some water out of the tap into a glass. He looked at it, it looked normal. He smelled it and it smelled funny. So he went outside and he followed the pipe to the well, and the well turned out to be fairly close to the silo. So he walked over to the silo and he asked, "How far is anything seeping out of the silo into the dirt?" In other words, in modern terms, that's a flume. It is basically poisonous. And a lot of companies will get rid of stuff that they don't want to pay money to get rid of. They pump it down a dry well, and it flumes out through the earth. And if your well is out there where that stuff is floating, fluming, you wind up with corn silage ooze in your water system. Okay. We are just about at the right spot, and it is now time to take questions on most anything that has to do with dowsing, but of course, map dowsing is the course, and you can call in and give us questions, and after the hour is up, you can call in the lounge and ask questions there too. So, go for it. Remember, there is absolutely no proof that life is serious.